Okay.
I would like to thank both Eric Goehl and Casey Myers, both with EPA OAQPS, for their willingness to prepare and give a presentation today on CEDRI, the Compliance and Emissions Data Reporting Interface, Train the Trainer. I'm looking forward to this. For me, CEDRI is a bit mysterious. Eric has been with, Eric has 11 years of experience as an environmental protection specialist in sector policy and programs in OAQPS, also known as the Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards. He's worked with 3 different groups in SPPD. His work in these groups range from development of the Petroleum Refinery Risk and Technology Review to managing the development of 30 risk and technology review modeling files. I'd also like to welcome Casey Myers. She's a physical scientist in the Sector Policy and Programs Division. And I guess that's where you get your SPPD of OAQPS. And both she and Eric are graduates of North Carolina State University. Let's see, one is Eric's is in environmental science, hers is in meteorology and atmospheric science. And with that being said, take it away, Eric and Casey.
Great, thank you. Let me share my screen. All right, Mark, just let me know when you can see this.
I can see it, and I presume everyone else can too.
Okay, great. Okay, so as Mark said, CEDRI stands for Compliance and Emissions Data Reporting Interface. We talked with Mark and Jennifer prior to this meeting to try to figure out what would be the kind of best topics to cover. And these are the ones we came up with. So we first wanted to start with just the CEDRI basics. What is CEDRI? What are the regulations that require industry to submit to CEDRI? And what are the different roles in CEDRI? And then we're going to get on to quite a few different demos. A couple of them would be just how to register as a preparer and certifier, but then how a certifier would initiate a person to become a delegated certifier. So we'll talk about what those roles mean. Then several demos, we'll just get into CEDRI, and Casey will walk through essentially the whole user interface. So how an industry user can activate and deactivate different roles for their facility. Often people, preparers, certifiers, leave the company and you want to be able to deactivate them. So often we'll get users asking us, how do I, deactivate somebody? So then there's a MyCEDRI page. We wanted to walk through that. And then we'll demo how to submit a report, both from a preparer standpoint and a certifier standpoint. Then we'll demo how to revise and resubmit a report and withdraw a report as a preparer and certifier. And then in the appendices, we have a list of job aid links. Those are basically how-to documents. And we have one for basically each of the subject areas we're planning on covering today. So I will submit or I'll send this presentation to Mark after the presentation. And then somewhere down the line, if somebody gets a question on one of these, they can either refer to their memory, or if it was me, I would probably have to refer to one of the job aids. So the two main websites for CEDRI is the listed on the page. The first one is our website, which is the public facing website. And that includes all information related to CEDRI, the job aids, the different regulations that have electronic reporting requirements. And we'll show that website briefly. And then the second website is the CDX website, and that is the website where you would access CEDRI. And I'll talk about CDX in a minute, but that is a main system where multiple EPA applications are housed, including CEDRI. So CEDRI is the electronic reporting system that affected sources submit their performance tests, notification reports, and periodic reports to EPA. And it's based on the regulations in 40 CFR 60, 62, and 63. I think it's important to note, though, that it's just the regulations that have electronic reporting requirements included in them that the facilities are required to report to CEDRI. So as a rough number, let's say about 100 of these regulations have electronic reporting requirements, and there's about 200 that do not. And as we open these rules, we're adding these electronic reporting requirements to the rules. CEDRI also collects Part 49, 70, and 71 Title V report documents, and these are voluntary. So these are not a required reporting. Often it would be states asking their facilities to use CEDRI. So as I mentioned, CEDRI is on the Central Data Exchange, and this is what that website face looks like. So you would log in under username and password, and then click on the role for to submit a report or to review a report. So for the reporting facilities, there's 3 different roles: the preparer, certifier, and delegated certifier. A preparer is often, not always, but often a contractor for a facility, and they would prepare the report and submit the report. And then an email will go to the certifier indicating that a report is ready for signature. So the certifier is often the owner or manager of a facility, and they're the ones authorized to sign and submit a report. A delegated certifier is somebody that is authorized by the certifier to sign and submit a report. And we'll go through how a certifier would go through the process of delegating that authority. So the next roles are EPA region, state, local, and tribal agencies, and that is either a state reviewer or EPA regional reviewer. And one thing to note on those 2 roles are that a state reviewer for North Carolina would only be able to see the reports for North Carolina facilities. So the same thing goes for regional reviewers. Only the reports for that states in that region. So the regulations that require the affected facilities to report to CEDRI are only in these rules. So as I mentioned earlier, Part 60, 62, and 63. And then repeating the fact that Title V reports can also go into CEDRI. So this is just a data flow diagram of how the electronic reporting requirements work. On the left, the facilities would submit test reports using the electronic reporting tool, and that's an access database. They would also submit periodic reports. These are often Excel spreadsheets, and those are spreadsheet templates that we develop in-house. And then notification reports often are PDF. So they would go into CEDRI, and then there's a processing period of 30 or 60 days. And that's where you folks, air agencies, would have time to review those reports. And then at the end of that processing period, unless the reviewer extends it or basically not revoke, but push back the report to the facility to make a change, it would go into WebFire. And that's when these reports would be publicly accessible. So the public does not have access to CEDRI, if I didn't mention that earlier. So I wanted to move on to let me go back actually to the topics of discussion. So we covered the basics. The next thing we wanted to do was demo how to register as a preparer and certifier. And so I'm going to give control back to Casey so that she can start the live demo. And I'll let Casey take over.
All right. See my screen now? Okay, cool. So this is CDX, as Eric mentioned, Central Data Exchange, and you can register with CEDRI by clicking on the Register with CDX link. And then that will take you to this Terms and Conditions page. We'll check the box saying you're the original registrant. Hit Proceed, and then you'll select CEDRI from the list of program services. CDX has a lot of different programs in it. So just want to select CEDRI if you want to register with CEDRI. And then you will select your role type. So on CDX, you can register yourself if you're a preparer or certifier, but if you want a reviewer role, you have to email us directly. So I'm going to select certifier because the process for certifier and preparer is pretty much the same up until there is an additional step for the certifier role to prove identity. And so I will select that role for this demo. Then you hit request role access, and you'll be prompted to add a facility or continue without adding a facility. I recommend continuing without adding a facility because this is adding your facility in CEDRI, not necessarily in CDX, which we'll have to do later. And so you can just do that at a different time and not mess with the process. So then it'll take you to the registration page, and you can enter your user ID, whatever, you can make it whatever you want to be, but if it's already taken, it will tell you it's already taken, so you'd have to change it to something else. And enter in your title, your first name, and your last name, and then create a password. And then retype your password. And if they don't match, it will tell you. And then there's security questions you need to answer. So these security questions are questions that you'll need to answer to reset your password. With the certifier role, there's also a second set of password or questions you'll have to answer. And that's actually for signing and submitting, which Eric will talk about later. But these are just for changing your password. We recommend writing them down. We have been down the path of not writing them down, and it's not great. But in the event that you do forget these passwords or your security questions for your password and you need to reset your password, you have to email the CDX help desk, not the CEDRI email, which is us, because we don't have that power in CDX. So just answer your questions, just write them down though. And here's your organization information. The organization, this is your CDX organization. So that's separate from the facilities you have in CEDRI. CEDRI has a facility widget where you'll add the facilities there. But for small companies, the organization here for CDX is the same as your facility you're adding in CEDRI. But for the bigger companies, they have a parent company that's the organization. And then the individual facilities under that parent company will be added in CEDRI. So I'm going to type in EPA and then search for facilities. And I'll select our Durham building. Then I'll enter in your email. And then enter it again. And then enter in your phone number. And then at this point, you'll hit submit request for access. So at this point, a preparer is totally done. So when they hit the submit request for access, they'll have the preparer role added to their profile in CEDRI. With a certifier, though, they have to go through the identity verification step. And that's the next couple of steps for the certifier role. And Eric's going to walk through that in our job aid because I'm not going to submit requests for access here because I don't actually want this role since I already have this role. We don't want to create a lot of dummy roles in CEDRI. So I'm going to give the screen back to Eric to finish it off.
All right, so I just wanted to stop real quick. Does anybody have any questions on anything that we've discussed so far? Something that we need to go back to? Or if there's any questions in the chat, and Mark or Allison, you see those, let me know.
I don't see any questions in the chat, Eric, not yet
Okay.
anyway. So I think you guys are rolling on a good pace.
But
All
can
right.
I interrupt with one quick question?
Oh, it's
Eric?
Tony. It's Tony, Eric. Just letting you know.
It doesn't look like this is a part of login.gov. Is there any plans for it to be part of login.gov?
So we internally, no, the answer is no. I was thinking that there was other applications that we use that we have to access login.gov to get to, but CEDRI is not one of them at this point.
Thanks.
Okay, so these were the, what we're doing is instead of showing the live demo and creating new roles in Casey's account, we're showing what we call job aids. So these will be referenced in that appendix that I had mentioned earlier, where they're how-to documents with screenshots and step-by-step instructions. So we thought we would use these to show each of the steps with the screenshots. So the last that we left, Casey was talking about adding your email and phone number and hitting the submit request for access button. So once you do that, you will get an email. And when I say you, we're talking in the certifier role here, a user. You would get an email with a code. So when you go into CEDRI, because you probably haven't closed it at this point, you would enter this code to create the account. And once you create the account, you're going to have to go through this verification step. So this is to, basically verify that you're a real person. So you would have to fill in the information, your home address, last four social, date of birth, etc., and proceed with verification. If for some reason it does not think you're a real person, you'll have to submit a paper verification. For the most part, this electronic verification works. There's few occasions where we've had a paper verification sent in an email saying, hey, what's the status of my paper verification? But for the most part, this should work. So let's assume it did. The next step would be to add your next questions and answers. And so these questions and answers are when you're doing the secondary verification, when you're signing and submitting a report. So we're now talking about the certifier role, and that's the person that would be signing and submitting a report. So would suggest, if you're talking to a user, to make sure that they definitely write these questions down. There is another option for the secondary verification, and that's through a mobile number with a text code, basically. So you could also do that. And that's just what this looks like. You would get a code. So please tell me if I'm scrolling too quickly, but I'm trying to get to the screenshots. So after you've done all that, done your questions, entered your mobile number, got the PIN code, then you would sign it electronically. So you'd hit sign electronically, hit accept. And then this is where you go through putting in your username and password. This looks exactly what it looks like when you're submitting a report. So the first step is username and password. Second step is the verification of either the question or the text message. So the question looks like this. The text message looks like this. So then you would hit sign. And now when you log back into CEDRI, you'll see that the user is now identified as a certifier. So that is the certifier role. And let me go back to the presentation. So that was this step. The next step is if a certifier wants to initiate a person to become a delegated certifier. So if the certifier can't be there sometime, they want somebody else to be able to sign and submit a report. So that's what we're talking about here. So I'm going to let Casey take back over and show the beginning demo of that.
All right, we actually had a question in the chat before. I
Oh,
did the
okay.
demo. So someone asked about if a user has recently moved, do we have a recommendation on what address they should use, their previous or which is on the government ID or the new address?
Hmm.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, I would. Yeah, I guess it just depends on how quickly it gets through the system when they submit change of address, I guess, with the post office. I don't know. I'm not sure. Never had that question.
That's okay. That's typically what we say. We say, we don't know. Try one.
Yeah. Yeah, try one, see if it works, and if not, try the other one.
Okay, no
Yeah.
worries. I was just curious if you guys, had any recommendations.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
All right. So now we are going to show you how to do the delegated certifier role. So I'm going to log in here. Oh, there's the dot in there. So you just log in, and then it'll take you to the CDX homepage. And so you don't actually have to go into CEDRI to do the delegated certifier as a certifier. You would just have your certifier role here, and you click role sponsorship, and then role sponsorship / invitation, and then enter an email. So I'm going to enter in Eric's. And then CEDRI and delegated certifier for the program service and role. Those are the only options you have. And then you'd hit submit. And so I'm also not going to hit submit here because we don't want to, again, create lots of dummy accounts in CEDRI or CDX. So Eric is going to show you the rest of the process in Job Aid.
All right. So we're back to a job aid. So this is where Casey just left off. So once you hit submit, so let me back up for a second. So with the role sponsorship, there's kind of three main steps. The first step is the certifier goes into CEDRI and initiates the process of a delegated certifier. So I would go in and initiate, or in this case, Casey went in to initiate me as a delegated certifier. So the next step would be me going into CEDRI and saying, yes, I accept the delegated certifier role. And then the last step is Casey would go back in to CEDRI, approve the delegated certifier role for me, and that would then complete the process. So now I would be a delegated certifier. But those are the three main steps. And if I don't summarize it ahead of time, when I show all these screenshots, it's going to be a bit confusing because it does take many steps within those three main steps to get to that point. So Casey and I get confused often on this process. So feel free, if something comes up or somebody does ask and they need some help, to certainly refer them to us. But so this is where we left off. So the certifier would hit submit, and they'll also get two more verifications that it is the correct email address and person. So you would hit submit and confirm. And then what would happen is two emails go out. One goes to the certifier, and in this case, it would be Casey, just indicating that she has begun the process of making me a delegated certifier. Then I would get an email that says, hey, you've been sponsored as a delegated certifier. Here's a link. Click on this review sponsorship link to go to your step to accept that delegated certifier role. So if I click on that link, I would log into CEDRI, Once I log into CEDRI, you'll see that you've been initiated as a delegated certifier. So you could just hit approve. Request the role. Told you it's a lot of screenshots. And you can also add the facility at this point. The only thing I would say there is whenever the user does add the facility, just make sure that you're adding the same facility of the certifier. So the preparer certifier, delegated certifier should have all the same facilities. We've definitely had that question come up in the past and actually just recently. So make sure it's the same facility. So now the certifier, or actually this is the organization. So organization, as Casey mentioned, organization facility would be the same in most cases since these are small businesses. So request the role. So now another email goes out and one goes to the certifier saying, hey, the delegated certifier has accepted this role. And the other one would go to the delegated certifier saying that you've finished that part of the process. So if the delegated certifier went in to CEDRI, they would see that their status is pending. Okay, so here's the next set of emails. So this is review the sponsorship request. This is the certifier email. And then this is the one just indicating that the delegated certifier finished their section. So Casey, as the certifier in our example, would click on review the sponsorship request. And at this point, she would have the ability to cancel that sponsorship request for whatever reason. We'll assume that she's going to complete it though. So then at this point, she would go in and hit approve. She said, yes, I want Eric to be a delegated certifier, hit approve, and then go through the electronic signature section again. So sign electronically, and another set of emails go out. So that's 3 sets of emails. This is the 3rd set. So one to the certifier, just confirming that Casey had completed the process, and one back to me, the delegated certifier, saying that your request has been completed and you're now a delegated certifier. So this is just finished. Sorry, I got ahead of myself, but this is just accepting the role from the certifier, and you would sign and submit just as if you're signing and submitting a report. So log in, password, question, sign. So now this process is complete, and now I would have delegated certifier role in CEDRI. I know that's a lot of steps, and I wish I could wish we could make it cleaner, but that's how this works. Is there any questions on that?
So another question in the chat, what are the most common problems people encounter and how can they help if it simply doesn't work on their browser because of strict privacy settings or something like that?
So repeat that first part again.
So what are the most common problems people encounter and how can they get help if it simply doesn't work on their browser because of strict privacy settings or something?
So I guess we have gotten those questions in the past, and I think we normally suggest Chrome seems to have the least number of issues. I don't even know if IE is around anymore, but we did have a bunch of problems with IE. You know, it probably would just have to be a case by case, or you know, email us at CEDRI@epa.gov and look at it on a case by case basis. I don't know that we've had any questions related to that. So hopefully that means it's not a problem. All right. So let me go back to the main slide. So the next set of demos we wanted to do in CEDRI, because we can show all these things in live CEDRI, whereas in these other demos, you know, we were basically starting new roles. So Casey's going to show how to activate and deactivate roles for your facility. And as I mentioned before, we have this question come up a lot. So a manager of facility who's a certifier says, hey, somebody just left the facility. You know, I want to make sure that they can get in and, you know, see a report or do something. So they have the ability as a certifier to go in and deactivate users. So then we just want to show the MyCEDRI page, how to submit a report, revise the report, and withdraw a report. So I will stop talking and let Casey start the demo again.
All right, so I'm actually doing this in our test environment, so I can actually submit a report and not have it be submitted in the real world. But our test environment looks exactly like real CEDRI, so you're not missing anything. So this is the CDX homepage, which you've already seen a couple of times now. I'm going to go in under my certifier role and just loads a little bit, and now we're actually entering CEDRI. So this is there we go. Here's CEDRI. So this is the MyCEDRI page. It has kind of like your home page, home base, has everything you could want to do from CEDRI from this page. And so this top little area here, this what would you like to do, is what most industry users use. So they have to create a report, review the reports under development, view their submitted reports, and then manage facilities. With the preparer role, though, the submitted reports are only submitted reports the preparer has done. Whereas in the certifier role, the submitted reports are all the submitted reports for the facility for the history of the facility. So there's a little bit difference between the preparer and the certifier role, and then managing your facilities. And then you can also go down to the facilities widget. That's where a user would add their facilities to their profile. And so these are all the facilities I've had added in the past. And then you can add a facility by just clicking the add facility link and then just searching for one by the name if you have the facility ID. Or typically for a preparer and a certifier, since you want to make sure you have the exact same facility, so that once the preparer submits a report, the certifier will be able to see it. Using the facility ID is the best way to do that, because sometimes the names can be a little bit similar if we have a duplicate report or a duplicate facility, which unfortunately happens sometimes, but using the facility ID is the safest way to do that. So I'm going to search by state and city, and then hit search facilities. And so it's searching now, and then it should pop up all the EPAs in North Carolina. It's a little bit slow. Sometimes you have to be patient with it. And so you just select which one you want, and then hit proceed with selections. You can select multiple if you want. And then save selected facilities, and it's adding the facility to my profile now. So again, just taking its time. All right, so once you add it, then you'll have your additional facility added to your profile, and it'll show up in your list. So that's the My Facilities widget. I'm now going to show how to create a report. Oh, there's also, you can see the notifications have reports pending signature or reports under development, so ones that you've started but you haven't finished yet, or if you're a certifier, the ones you have pending signature. And then there's a bunch of like help resources. There's a list of our different different job aids, CEDRI homepage, a change log, which just basically has a Word file where Eric and I update it every time we update a new template or any major change to the user interface. And then our list of rules, an FAQ, and then the ERT modifier. So now we're going to create a report. Hit create a report, select your report type. I'm going to choose a periodic report because I happen to have it on my desktop. And then we have our search criteria. And so you can search by the sector, source category, your report type, part, subpart, report name. So it's really, we try to make it as easy as possible for industry to find what they're trying to submit without any resistance. So I'm going to choose Quad OA because that's the report that I have. Then you hit search for reports, and all the reports of your search will pop up here. and you can select which one you want. And so I want the semi-annual report. And the one you added will be added down here under selected reports. And then the next step is to upload documents. And so you can edit the report name if you have multiple reports that are the same subpart, so you can keep track of them. There's a link to the PRA and then the report template itself. So we do have updates to templates occasionally. And so if there's a newer version, CEDRI won't accept the older version if it's a major update. And so this will just help you make sure you have the right version. And then browse or drag. I tend to browse. Eric tends to drag. And then select your report, then upload. And so it's uploaded. Then you can select your facility. And then continue. And so I have a bunch of facilities on my profile. So I will select the EPA one. I hope Eric is a pair on this one. Okay, good. Then continue. And then hit sign and submit. You can also add a facility if your facility isn't already here. We recommend having the facility there by the time you get to the stage, though, it just makes it a lot smoother. And then you would hit sign and submit, and then confirm. And then here is the, we have a bad gateway. Sometimes this happens, not great. Try it again. Come on, CEDRI. Well, we have some chat questions while this is happening. Eric, did you get all the chat questions?
Yeah, I was working, the one person had asked about Title V reports. So I was gonna show which Title V report documents are accepted in CEDRI. Whenever you're done with the demo, I can show that page. And then I think Tony had a question. Tony, you want to go ahead and ask it?
Yeah, sure. Well, I wondered if there's a wildcard character that can be used for searching, because sometimes people have, acronyms that they use, or it may be a part of a name of a longer company, like or Daimler Trucks or just Daimler, or in your case, US EPA versus EPA, and you could maybe not find the right facility at first blush. How do you get there?
I don't know about a wild card, but you can definitely search by address and county, and so there's a lot of the specific searching you can do to make sure you get the right facility.
The
And
safest
so,
bet, though, go ahead.
I was just wondering, like a lot of databases, maybe if you put a percent character in front or something like that, it might work as a bunker.
Gotcha. I do not believe we have that ability.
I don't think we're that fancy. Okay, so I'm logging in now, and this is the e-signature widget that you saw with the delegated or the certifier role when you're setting it up. And so type in your password, I don't have the phone thing set up because when I set this account up, it was before that was a thing. I kind of wish I did though. Hopefully this is right. Oh no. There we go. All right, and then you sign the file. And since this is test, I'm gonna actually sign the file because it's test, so it doesn't matter. So you get a receipt once you submit something, and you can then go to your reports or go to your CEDRI dashboard. I'll go to my reports because that's the next part of the demo I want to show you. So this is the CEDRI reports, and so it shows you the ones that you have under development, which I have a lot of just test ones I've been doing in the past, and then reports pending signature. And so ones where I've gotten to the point where I've uploaded them and got up until the signature stage and just haven't signed and submit them. And so you can select as many as you want, and you can edit them, delete them, you can submit them if you want. And then you can also create a new report from this My Reports page. And then there is the CEDRI history. CEDRI history is for the certifier role. Again, this is every report that's been submitted for this particular facility that I'm the certifier for. And so you can download the whole thing as Excel if you want, which is nice. And then you can also view the filters. So I love the CEDRI filters. Like I cannot get enough of these filters. They're so great. You can filter by start date, end date, by status, the Premier Activity ID or the Premier Document ID if you have either one of those. You can also filter by geography, so like state or county. And once you type in a state, it will give you the county list and you can start typing or just scroll if you want. And then facility. And so you can search by the facility ID, either the FRS ID or the CEDRI ID. Either one will work, or the facility name. And so you can actually start just typing in the first 3 letters and it'll pop up. I guess Blues isn't one for this role I'm at, but like EPA. And so it'll show up all of the ones that have EPA in there. And then you can also filter by the sector or the rule. So if you know you want to find something for a particular sector, a source category, by the part or the subparts, you can do like part 60 and the subpart AAA. And then you can also do by report type. So if you want to find a specific report type in CEDRI, so if you're looking for ICR data or something, or the report name, so you can scroll through this. This is all the report names that we have that are applicable to this by roles, and then the format of it as well. So a lot of different options. Finding something in CEDRI is honestly so easy. It's just, I love the filters. They're so great. And I'm not even being like, I mean, I'm being dramatic, but like, I'm not exaggerating at all. I just love them. They're so great. So I will search by a facility to see what we have. Apply the filters, and then it shows you all the entries, everything that has been submitted. And so this list here again can be downloaded as an Excel. Once you filter, when you click download, it will download the filtered list. And then to view each one of these reports individually, you can just select them and it brings you the report details page. And then you can download what was submitted. You can see all the information about the report, the status of it, if it's in WebFire or not, certification date, the date it was available in WebFire. Typically, these will be different in the test environment. It just automatically goes to the test environment in WebFire, so they're the same, but in other cases, they'll be different. The Premier Activity ID, Document ID, the report name, the citation, the type of report, the format, and also the OMB control number. Then the Facility tab shows all the information on the facility, who the certifier was, so I submitted this one, and then revisions that have been made. So you can push back a report for a facility, or I guess never mind. If this role, you can go in if you get told that if it's been pushed back, or if you get told you need to revise and resubmit it, or if you just find an error, like on the industry side, you would hit this revise and resubmit report, or you can just withdraw the report entirely and start from scratch. So either one works. We recommend to revise and resubmit so you can keep a paper trail of each of the submissions. But both ways I'll get into CEDRI. And so with this particular report, I've already revised and resubmitted once, but I can also click it again and it tells you resubmission warning, and continue, and then it brings you back to the step 3 where you're uploading your documents, and you can select the file. I'm actually not gonna revise and resubmit this. Well, I guess I could. Let's see what I can see. And since this acceptable file format is whatever file type you want, this is making that a lot easier. I'm glad I selected that. Select your facility again, and then continue. And I had selected this facility. Continue again, then sign and resubmit. And then at this point, because it's a sign and resubmit, you want to tell why. So you have a description box here, continue with resubmission, and then confirm, and then back to the e-signature widget. It's always fun to see what question you get. Ooh. And sign the file, and you're good to go. So you can go back to my reports, go to my CEDRI dashboard, and then view print your receipt again. So we'll go to the CEDRI dashboard this time. And I will go back to CEDRI history and just show you what it looks like when you withdraw a report. So this feature is pretty great and just allows you to withdraw it and then confirm and authenticate. Have to sign again. You always have to sign. So the certifier role, the point of it, because you have to go through that identification, you have to sign a lot of different things because you're proving that you are you've proved who you are, who you say you are, and you're giving the authority to do all of this. So I'm going to do this again. See what question I get this time. Oh. Go. And then the report's withdrawn. So now at this point, there's the record of the report, but the report will no longer be in Mudfire. And so you'll see it has been, the status will be withdrawn in CEDRI. That is CEDRI history and the report details feature. It's now going to go to manage users. So I have a lot of different facilities, so you can select which facility you want. And then this is where you're able to revoke people's access, or you can send an email to grant people access. So for this particular facility, Eric and I, and then a test user, are the preparers. And then Eric and I are also the certifiers, along with Colin, who was the CEDRI, maybe the CEDRI lead. He was before my time and before Eric's time, so not sure. So we're going to revoke his access. So you just select the person you want to revoke access for, and then hit revoke access for selected user. Hit OK, and there we go. And then I guess he's still there. I'm gonna have to refresh. Oh, he's still there. So I don't know when at some point he will disappear, but I don't know when that's going to be. And there's also the user email. You can grant someone access to a particular facility. So if you want to make sure they have the same facility you have, you send them an email, and it will take them back to CEDRI to complete the process. So add new user. Actually, I guess Eric's already added, so let's see what happens. I'll get them both other than the certifier role, and then grant access. And so he should get an email. And then he is added again. So that is the managing users. And back to MyCEDRI. I think that's about it. Doing submitter
So,
reports.
yeah, did we want to stop for a second and see if anybody had
Yes,
any
does anyone have any
questions?
questions?
As you can tell, we go through CEDRI a lot, so we're pretty quick around the site. So anything we want to repeat, you want to see again, something's, go through the process slower. I know we're a little biased, but we do feel like it's pretty easy to create and submit a report in CEDRI, especially if it's just a PDF report. It's pretty easy to do. But any questions? Is there anything in the chat? Doesn't look like it. Okay.
But, and for clarity, I think you guys had said that in the, and I forget you have a special name for them, but in the help documents where you have the screenshots, a lot of this walkthrough is captured through those screenshots. Is that correct? Yeah, I think, and I have to say, just as a sidebar, that I really appreciate that your system does the same thing that mine does when I'm trying to train people in like how to use our air emissions reporting system, where it's like, I'm not going to cooperate, I'm going to lock up, I'm going to make you wait, and kind of look a little silly. So not that you're looking silly, but it's like, oh good, it's not just me, I'm not the jinx. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it goes with the territory when you want to do a live demo of anything.
Of course.
Yes.
Pretty much.
All right, anything in here you wanted to mention, Casey, or should we move on to the listing of job aids for each subject area?
I can show the job aids on the CEDRI site.
Great.
All right, so we have, in addition to CEDRI itself, we have the Drupal page for CEDRI, which is our like home run, like homepage of CEDRI. And I don't even have it saved. I just type in EPA CEDRI like every time, and it's the first one that pops up. And so this page, it has the announcements for, so like any major template update or any minor template update, we like put it here. An overview of CEDRI, some submission statistics, and then This is the really interesting part with the job aids. And so the job aids, everything that Eric is showing you, plus a bunch of other job aids, you can find them in this table here. There are 24 of them total, and you can search by just typing in if you want to know like something with MyCEDRI. And it'll filter it for you. So there's 8 that have MyCEDRI in there. And you can also search, or you can filter and search by, or sort, I suppose, by the role. So if it's a reviewer role specific, industry and reviewer, or just industry specific, you can see it that way. And then also the area in CEDRI. So if you're in the MyCEDRI page right now and you need help with something, you can sort so you're able to see which area you want to be in. So those are where the job aids are housed. We also have our rules and requirements. So these are all the part 60, 62, and 63 rules and what is available in CEDRI for submission, and then all of the Title V reports. So it's not as cool as CEDRI, but it can be helpful.
And each one of those tables are also searchable. So
Yes, they're all searchable, and you're all able to sort. I find the sorting helpful.
Yeah.
That is our homepage.
all right. You want to let me share again?
No, yep, sure do.
All right. So one more time. This is the screenshot of the Title V reports. Whoever it was that asked that question, these are the current reports that are in CEDRI. We can add other ones if somebody wants a different Title V report document to come in. So that's the list. And then, so yeah, let me go to the last piece, which was this. Okay, so this was basically our table of contents of what we're going to cover today, and each one of these subject areas has a job aid associated with it. So if you can't remember a couple months down the road when a user calls, you can refer to one of these job aids as a refresher. And as you saw when we were going through those job aids, they're screenshots with text for each step. So they're pretty easy to follow in the event that the question comes up. So each one of these are live links back to the CEDRI website. And I'll include these, this presentation, I'll send it to Mark and Jennifer, and they can distribute as they see fit. So let's see, the only other thing I think I wanted to mention was, I think we were talking to Allison before we started the presentation, and in cases where one of you you folks that are not a state or federal employee, because you would not be able to access CEDRI for a state or region to see what reports that facility has submitted, we would suggest, you know, Microsoft Teams or a Zoom meeting so that the user can share their screen. We do that a lot with users. It's just easier to see what they're running into, and we can talk them through, you know, what issue they're having. So you could be a preparer for that particular facility, but once again, if you did not submit that report, it's only going to show you the reports that you've submitted as a preparer. So I don't think that's very helpful. So anyway, we would suggest a Teams or a Zoom meeting and help that way. Or you could send them to us. They can just send an email to CEDRI@epa.gov, and we would be glad to help too. So at this point, that was all that we had prepared to discuss. It doesn't look like we have a whole lot of extra time. Any other questions?
Question in the
Yeah.
chat. Do you see that one, Eric?
Let me look.
It just
Let's-
basically says, do some states have their own software that basically requires the same information to be submitted? So you're kind of like simultaneously submitting the same thing in 2 places. Do you know?
I don't know that there's a software that that parses it to both.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some states that require facilities to submit, to their system as well, as unfortunate as that is, but
Tony, do you know of any? Because I mean, I know we don't do that here in Michigan because I have one person who sends me all the CEDRI reports and it's awesome. Not really. I mean, it's great.
I'm not sure that I know offhand, but I'm pretty sure there are some that do. But I don't know the ones off the top of my head.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions? Because we are running up on 3. I know Eric and Casey, they probably don't want us to all send them questions all at once. But if you do think about this, or you go back and watch the recording, or you have people calling about CEDRI, if you want to send questions about this presentation specifically, or what was covered, or if you need clarification or anything like that, you can always send that to Mark and I, and we can kind of consolidate things and send those to Casey and Eric as well. That might help us if we have some general questions that we want to share back out to the group. But I think this was great. I love Train the Trainer. This really helps me kind of figure out when I get questions from companies, how to walk them through it, or at least where to point them. And I think that really helps us as small business assistance providers, that we don't look silly when we're like, we don't know what you're talking about. So I think that's really helpful. Mark, I know, do you want to close things off? I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add.
No, I don't have anything to add, other than what I think is Rhonda's going to come up with a speaker to talk about minor source new review permitting rule. And I don't know what that means. I think Donovan has a better understanding of that. And perhaps everyone else on this presentation, including Eric and Casey, probably knows more about what that means. But other
Next
than
time,
that, I
right?
don't have anything more to say.
Okay. I think we're going to talk about that on our November call. So with that, I will let you guys jump off, but thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. If we could all applause, we would, because we, appreciate the time and energy and effort that you came to chat with us today. And, but everybody
Yeah.
else, technical subcommittee, you guys have a great rest of your day, and look for some outreach from Mark and I on when the recording is posted, and where you can find more information. So thanks
Yes,
a lot, you guys.
thank you very much.
You're
Appreciate it.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a good day.